Well, good morning. Hey, we are so glad that you are with us. And let me just start off with a win for all of us. You have perfect attendance so far this year. I have never been more proud of you. Many of you I'm going to be less proud of next week, but right now let's celebrate the win. This is a big deal to me. I loved getting little achievement awards when I grew up. And so last night I showed my wife that I actually bought 500 little stickers that say perfect attendance. And my hope was that as you left today, we would give you a sticker to say perfect attendance, but I left it on the counter at our house. So, yeah. So if you come back next week, see me, we'll have them available for you. I think that would be the more exciting goal to see is how many we had. Hey, we're excited, man. What a great year we had last year, and we're excited about what God is going to do this year. There is something to be said, but certainly not to be taken for granted when we live with a sense of expectation about what's to come. And it doesn't discount how challenging things may be or how hard things have been, but boy, there is this hope that we have that tomorrow will get better, and the next day, and the next day, and one day we will stand before God when everything is made perfect and right. And that is the hope that we carry into every new year. And just by a quick show of hands, how many of you are resolution people? It's awesome. Really excited for both of you. It's going to be a very productive year. The rest of us, we just gave up. I don't blame you. I get it. We're done. We're like, yeah, we're good. We're good. I like to set the bar so low that it's just a surprise to everyone else, right? It's just, yeah, I mean, you got to win somewhere, but that's why perfect attendance is a big deal, all right? Now it just goes downhill from here, but I totally get it. As we head into this new year, we've got a lot of things that we're going to kind of navigate and talk about, and in particular, this morning, we're going to spend some time looking at this unique moment in history. It's this moment right before Jesus is beaten and crucified and eventually raised from the dead, but he's having this final conversation with all of his disciples. He's basically kind of saying, hey, let me tell you what's coming up. Let me just kind of give you a little bit of a heads up about some changes that are coming your way, some future things that are going to take place. And although when Jesus is having this conversation, none of them really knew exactly what he was talking about. And the things that Jesus would call trouble, right? He said, hey, in this world, you're going to have some issues. You're going to have some challenges. You're going to have some trouble that's going to come your way. They didn't even fully understand what that meant, that Jesus was saying, listen, I know there's some things that are on the other side of the door right now that you don't really have any idea what's coming. And so I want to tell you some of these things so that you're not caught off guard, so that you won't be surprised. In other words, Jesus is kind of saying, hey, listen, you're standing behind a door that you're not really sure what's on the other side. And I'm just going to tell you, hey, listen, I think there's some things that I'm going to say that's really important. So you got to listen to me. You got to be able to remember what I'm about to say. And in John chapter 16, actually it's a series of conversations from John 13 all the way through John 16, when Jesus is having this conversation with his disciples. And he's trying to say, hey, here's what's coming. Here's some things that you're going to face. Here's some challenges. And Jesus is about to explain some really difficult things to them. But he's saying, hey, I just need you to know what's on the other side of the door. I need to let you know what's coming. And it reminded me of the scene in the movie Gladiator. Maybe you remember this with Russell Crowe. And he was standing there, and he was kind of being forced to go out to the Coliseum for the first time. And he's kind of standing there, and he's just waiting behind the door. And you see this guy with this swinging, I don't even know what it's called, like death ball, like go around in circles. And it sees like the lights coming through, and he's kind of standing there, and he's sitting there, and he's waiting. And this is the first time you can see in the scene, but then as it goes, he's standing behind the Colosseum, and new people kept coming, and they would all have the same thing. They would stand behind this door, not knowing what was on the other side, except for most likely certain death. And so in one of the scenes, I love when Russell Crowe, his character Maximus, he stands there and he sees these guys, and they're all freaking out, and he just says, hey, listen, let me just tell you what's coming up. All right, there's a lot of things on the other side of this thing, but here's what needs to happen. We need to stay together. If we stay together, we stand a chance. And he begins to tell them, listen, it's really important. Listen to me. I know what's on the other side of that door. I've been there before. And so if we're going to get through this, we're going to need to figure out how to get through this together. In other words, just have this moment where he kind of goes, saying, guys, hey, listen, come what may. Right, well, whatever comes, we're going to get through this. But don't forget this. Stay together. Right? It reminds me of this scene. This is what Jesus is doing in John chapter 16. He's telling them, listen, I don't have a lot of time left on this earth. I'm going to go away. I'm going to be sending a comforter, but here's what you need to remember. And that word remember literally means to be intentional, to not forget. Right? There's a difference between a memory and remembering. Right? If I sit there and somebody says something to me and I go, oh, wait, yeah, that's right. I remember something like that. That's a memory. When I am intentional to not forget, then I am trying to remember. Right? I'm trying to think of these things. This is what Jesus says in John chapter 16. Listen, I got to go away. I'm not going to be on this earth for very long, and I'm going to send a comforter. He's going to come, and he's going to guide you. There's going to be some trouble that comes your way. There's some stuff on the other side of this door that you don't really even understand just yet. So just remember what I'm about to say. Be intentional to not forget. And so over the next kind of couple of weeks together in this series, we're going to kind of live in John chapter 16, and we're going to listen to the words that Jesus shared with his disciples that have been put in the scriptures so that you and I, who are followers of Jesus, can learn and embrace the same concepts and truths. Where Jesus is going to say, hey, listen, you got some things coming up. Not sure what's on the other side of the door. Hey, let me tell you a few things that you need to remember. A few things you need to be intentional to not forget. And so this is what John chapter 16 looks like. In the first few chapters before that, Jesus begins this conversation, and he's telling his disciples some pretty tough truths, some things that we don't always want to hear. Right? He tells one of his disciples, he says, guys, one of you guys are going to betray me. He tells another one of his disciples, another one of you, you're going to deny me. You know, and everyone's going, no, I wouldn't do that, Jesus. Yeah, I know it's on the other side of the door. I know it's coming up. I know what's taking place. He says some pretty cut and dry things like, hey, listen, you just need to understand I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. Nobody gets to God except through me. Well, what about Jesus? What about those of us who live a pretty good life? I am the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody gets to God except through me. Well, wait a minute. What about like all the good stuff we did? Listen, I'm the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life, and no one gets to God except through me. In fact, Jesus says, and let me just take it a step further, apart from me, you can do nothing. You're a branch that's attached to the vine, and if you don't bear fruit, that branch gets cut off and thrown into the fire. Those are some pretty tough challenges. Jesus goes on to say, listen, you're going to be in a world right now that they're going to hate you because of me. Right? There's some stuff that's coming up on the other side of the door that I'm just telling you, you're not even fully prepared for yet. So just be really intentional to remember these things. And in John chapter 16, Jesus tells them why he's saying these things to them. And so this is where we're going to begin. John chapter 16, starting in verse 1. This is what Jesus says. All this, right, these last few chapters, 13, 14, 15, all of this I have told you so that you will not fall away. Hey, listen, I've told you all this stuff so that you will not fall away. Some of your translations may say, so that you will not stumble. Jesus says, I've told you all these things. I know it's stuff that you don't really want to hear, but I'm just telling you what's coming. I'm just telling you there's some things on the other side of the door. It's uncomfortable. And I'm telling you this stuff so that you won't fall away. See, for the last 3 years, the disciples had been walking alongside Jesus throughout life. And while there were certainly some moments, for the most part, it's actually been pretty smooth. Jesus took care of them. Jesus performed some miracles. They kind of grew in some notoriety. Whenever they were hungry, Jesus just stole some kids' food and multiplied it. And it's like, everyone gets to eat. You get a loaf of bread. You get a loaf of bread, right? All these things. The disciples are going, this is great. Happens multiple moments. Everything they needed was taken care of. But now Jesus says there's going to be some there's going to be some changes coming up. I'm no longer going to be with you. And so he starts to warn them about what may cause them to stumble. And Jesus isn't saying this to discourage them. He's not trying to say this stuff so that we're fearful or that we're anxious, but because he doesn't want them to fall away. Right? Here's why this is so helpful. Have you ever noticed that what causes us to stumble is not what's in our path? It's that we didn't know it was going to be there. Let me say that again. What often causes us to stumble is not what's in our path. It's that we didn't know it was going to be there, right? When you trip and you fall down the stairs, it's usually because you didn't know someone left a pair of shoes on the fourth step, right? You just didn't know that's not the way it was supposed to be, right? When you're walking along a sidewalk, right? For those of us who are just gravitationally challenged and we find the smallest crack and we trip over it because the concrete was raised, we just didn't expect that was going to be. That's actually what it was. We sit and say stumble, we fell, that crack caused me. Really is that we just didn't see it. If we'd seen it, we would have just stepped over it, right? You see, what causes us to stumble is not always what's in our path. It's that we just didn't know it was going to be there. And so in verse 2, Jesus kind of continues. And he just, let me just tell you what's coming up. Let me just tell you what's ahead of you. He says, you're going to be expelled from the synagogues. In other words, you're going to be kicked out of church. And to be a part of the Jewish culture, church was the centerpiece of everything for them. And so Jesus was saying, hey, listen, you keep following me. You keep living as a disciple of mine. I'm just letting you know what's coming. There's going to come a point where they're going to say, you're not welcome in this church. Listen, we don't believe those same things. We don't think Jesus was who he says that he was. And you're going to get kicked out. So the time's going to come when those who kill you think they're doing a holy service from God, right? If you're one of the disciples, don't you go, wait, what? Could you just rewind that? You said those who kill you, like not who might try to kill you, who might be so mad they want to kill you. Like, you're pretty serious. No, those who kill you, right? They're going to think they're doing a holy service for God. And they will do these things because they have not known the Father nor me. But look what Jesus says. But I have said these things to you, that when the hour comes, you may remember that I told them to you. In other words, this is what Jesus is saying. I'm telling you this now because when it happens, I don't want you to think that whatever comes through those doors was something that I didn't know was coming. I didn't want you to think that whatever comes your way has caught me off guard. Right? I don't want you to interpret the circumstances of your life as evidence that I am not in control. I am telling them to you so that whatever happens, whatever comes your way, you have trust in me. Amen. Jesus said, I know it's coming. You're going to have some trouble. And I just don't want you to be somehow caught off guard. I don't want you to look at the circumstance of your life and go, God, this isn't what I thought it would be. Therefore, you've wronged me. You've ignored me. You've left me. Jesus said, I'm just telling you I'm just telling you. Tell you what's coming so that you know that I know, and that gives you confidence to know that I am in control. I know it's coming. Our youngest daughter, Willow's 8 years old, and when she was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with autism. And while Willow excels in lots of different things, she's extremely social. She loves being able to meet new people and just all over the place. She's fantastic. So much joy and innocence that's in her life and in her heart. But one of the things that Willow is not a fan of is transition changes. Right? When Willow is especially doing something that she likes to do, and someone tries to tell her we need to stop playing and it's time to go do math, that's a challenge for Willow. And she digs in. She does not like it. And that is something that we're constantly trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this easier for her? And a number of years ago, my wife, who I am convinced was God put her on this world just for Willow, my wife did this deep dive into how do we take care of Willow's heart? How do we help protect her? How do we help her navigate some of these things? And so still to this day, my wife will create, along with her school now, who does the same thing for her, creates what are called social stories. They're literally just these little tiny pictures of what's going to happen throughout the day. And as you can see, this is actually literally one from this weekend. And Amy and my daughter Violet were out of town, and so me and Ollie, we had Willow, and so we were gearing up. We're trying to figure out, all right, how do we make this as best as we can? And so Amy sat down, she started to write out a social story, which are really just these little pictures about what's going to happen throughout the day. We do this for activities that we're going to have at home, and we kind of help Willow say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start here, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then we kind of branch it throughout the weekend. We do this for school. We do it anytime we can help her see what's coming. And these stories are created just for her to remind her that we see you, that you can trust us. Willow, whatever comes next, it's going to be okay. It's part of the plan. We want you to see that even though you may not enjoy it, we're going to be able to get through it. We're going to take care of you. We're going to help you navigate whatever comes your way. And so we do this all the time, multiple times throughout the weeks. Amy will sit down and she'll draw these, and sometimes Willow sees it and she takes it and she rips it apart and throws it on the ground. And we go, well, that's all right. We got more markers. We'll keep going. Right? Other times it's just something that grounds her and it helps her figure this out. I started thinking about this. Wouldn't this be great if that's kind of how life worked for you? Right? Wouldn't that be really nice if you think about your situations or the challenges that you faced in life? Like if you sat down on your wedding day and someone wrote you a little bit of a social story and just said, hey, listen, I just want you to know what might be coming. Things seem really great today, right? It seems really wonderful. Can't wait to get to that hotel. I get it. But let me just tell you what might be happening. Don't be surprised if, in a year or two or, some challenges come up, and don't be surprised when you introduce kids into the mix. It's going to really throw some stuff off. Right? Wouldn't it be nice if someone gave that to you so you kind of knew what was coming? What about your job? The situation you're in, you're going, man, this is a challenge. But what if someone was able to say, yeah, it's going to look like this for a season, or you're probably going to lose your job, and you're going to wonder whether or not you're going to ever find another job. But listen, I think if you just held out for about 4 to 5 months, another opportunity will open up. Like, wouldn't that just be so much more beneficial for us if we had some kind of social story that reminded us, hey, there's a plan? Like, you can get through this plan. Right? Listen, we know it's coming. We know it's down the road. We see what's there. Wouldn't that be so much more beneficial? So much easier? This is exactly what Jesus is saying to his followers. He's saying, hey, this is not just for this season. This is how you navigate all of life. This is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, I'm saying all of this stuff. I'm telling you, you're going to have some challenges. You're going to have some disappointments. You're going to have some ups and downs. You're going to have some threats upon your life. You're going to have some threats upon your way of life. And I'm just telling you all this stuff so that when those things come, you won't lose your faith in me. Over the last couple of years, one of the things that has amazed me most was watching the way followers of Jesus have navigated the unforeseen changes of life. And the circumstances around COVID and how we had to navigate that, politics, race, cultural ideologies. There were just these last couple of years, there's just been a massive influx, an uptick in relationships that have fallen apart. Division among friends, division among families, division in churches. Even people who are walking away from their faith, who start to discount the role of the community of believers, of the church in their life. And in the last 3 years, I've watched a lot of people stumble. It's almost as if we forgot the words and the teachings of Jesus, that this life is filled with some ups and downs. This life is filled with uncomfortable moments and seasons, and you will have trouble. This life is filled with broken people. And those broken and hurt people hurt people. This life is going to be filled with these things. And we forgot that Jesus says, I've told you this. I told you that you're going to have people who disagree with you. I told you that you're going to experience some things that even may threaten your way of life, that may even threaten your very life. I've told you these things so that when it happens and whatever comes your way, you have trust in me. I got to tell you, as a pastor, I've been amazed at how fast we lost our trust and our faith. And maybe even for some of us or some people that we know or that we love, we have really had our foundation shaken over these last few years. You see, Jesus never painted a picture of peace and perfection on earth. He never brought a version of the gospel that assured that your life is going to be smooth sailing, that you will not have to endure hardships or pain, or that you are somehow exempt from the brokenness or the hurt, or even the people or the decisions that you don't agree with. And friends, I'm just telling you, any version of the gospel that tries to tell you otherwise is not the gospel of Jesus. The gospel that Jesus brings is this: come what may. Come what may, I am with you. I am with you right in the middle of the brokenness, right in the middle of the hardship, right in the middle of the pain. You can still trust in me. So don't lose your faith. Don't fall away. Don't get thrown off when troubles come your way. That's the gospel message that Jesus came to bring, which may be a lot different than what you were told. Maybe some of you may have had people tell you a version of the gospel that said, hey, listen, just give your life to Jesus. Listen, when you do, everything will be better. Everything's going to be smooth sailing. It's always sunny and 75 when you're a follower of Jesus. Listen, just give it all. And you made that decision, and all of a sudden you realize that life still happened. The troubles still came. And maybe if you're being honest, maybe there's a part of you that even felt like it was a bit of a bait and switch between the promise that God's life is a better life and Jesus makes everything better and your current expectation or your current reality right now. And somehow, there's a part of you that feels like God let you down. And maybe you or maybe some people that you love or care about or that you know, maybe you decided that faith or engaging in the life of the church, that just doesn't need to be as important to you anymore. There's a pretty world-renowned sociologist by the name of Christian Smith. In particular, over the last handful of years, the last decade, and then even more so in the last 5 years, he spent a lot of time studying why people drop out of church and why they walk away from their faith. His conclusion was this: it's not that people are deconstructing because they don't like what they've experienced. He's saying the vast majority of people, thousands upon thousands of people that have walked away from their faith in God, this is the conclusion and the reason why they said it. He said the problem, this is his conclusion, the problem is that many people call themselves Christians, but the religion they are practicing isn't Christianity. It's moral, therapeutic deism. And he defines it like this: worshiping a God who blesses people who are good, nice, and fair, and helps believers be happy and feel good about oneself. The vast majority of people that walked away from their faith wasn't because they were walking away from Christianity. In fact, what they were actually living was not Christianity at all. It was this moral picture of this idea that God does good things for good people so that people can be nice and happy and feel good about themselves. The problem is that isn't Christianity at all. You see, Christianity is not be good and God will make you happy. Right? In fact, Jesus tells us throughout his ministry, following him, actually, if you're going to follow me, it's about taking up your cross, which is a symbol of death. And it's about identifying with him in suffering. Right? The problem is when our idea of Christianity crashes against God's reality of following Jesus, as Christian Smith discovered, we shouldn't be surprised to see people of any age walk away. Right? This was why Jesus was trying to help his followers see what was coming, so that we wouldn't stumble and walk away. And so as you read these chapters in John 14 and 15 and John 16, right, you start to recognize this is the end. Right? Jesus was trying to explain to his disciples, hey, listen, I know it's coming up. I know it's behind those doors. And it's going to result in me no longer being on this earth. And they didn't fully understand or grasp what this was. But for 3 or 4 chapters in a row, Jesus is kind of saying, hey, listen, this is going to be the last conversation that we have. Right? And you would think, right? You would think as you're reading through this, as Jesus just kind of starts laying it out, and it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse, and eventually the world's going to want to kill you for my sake. And you would think at some point it would turn a corner. Right? That as Jesus is talking about how hard things are going to get, about what's coming next, that at some point Jesus would go, but wait a minute, guys. Right? And the Rocky music would start cueing in the background, like, but you can overcome this. I have trained you up. I have set you forth. I have created you. I have made you for this. You are good. You're going to be able to, you got this. But it never comes. It just gets worse. Every time Jesus opens his mouth in the last conversation, right? If you would think that Jesus is going, hey, this is the last time we're going to talk. I need to fire these guys up. Chances are Jesus wasn't getting hired at your company's motivational party, right? Everyone's like, what, man? But we got this, right, Jesus? No. See, the message of Jesus is not you can do it. The message of the gospel is you can't do this, but God can through Jesus. Let me just say that again, because some of us, we need to hear it, because you have entered into 2024 thinking you're going to take this world by the horns. You're going to chart some courses. You're going to do it. You got this. Yeah, let me just tell you, the message that Jesus came to bring, the message of the gospel is you can't do this. But God can through Jesus. And the good news of the gospel isn't really good news until you recognize that to be true. Until you come to that place, until we come to that place. We can't do it. We need help. Right? And so Jesus knows he doesn't have much time left, and so he wants to get them, his disciples, to this place where they know, they understand, they embrace the true message of the gospel, where they don't feel confident that they got this. And so all of a sudden you feel like it starts to settle into the disciples. They start to realize, man, Jesus isn't going to be here. We're going to need some help in order to live for Jesus. We're going to need some help to live like Jesus. And next week, we're going to talk about where that help comes and where that help comes from. But here's what I want us to land today. I want us to arrive at a place as we start a new year, to arrive at this place to understand that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to say, I don't got this. I need some help. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you could do, I would say it's probably more important initially than you having a great Bible reading plan for 2024. Is for you to come to the place in your heart where you go, man, God, I don't got this. I need some help. Now, keep the Bible reading plan for 2024 because you're going to discover that help comes from those things. But it starts with this core understanding in your heart. You don't have what it takes. You don't got this. The truth is, as capable as my wife is in taking care of our daughter, she needs help. She doesn't get it. I don't get it. We don't got it. And I'm just telling you, I have seen when it comes to navigating the ups and downs of life you know the people who tend to survive the storms? They're not the strong ones. They're not the ones who are just willfully trying to just stand against whatever came their way. They were the ones who were confident enough in their Savior to go, I can't do this on my own. I don't know everything. God, I don't got this. I don't know what the right thing to do is. I don't know what the right thing to say here is. I need your word to guide me. I need you to help me understand those moments. I need to stay true to what you tell me to stay true to. God, I need some help. I'm just telling you, sometimes the most spiritual things you can do is just have an honest moment, an honest conversation with God and go, man, God, I don't got this. I've been trying my hardest to keep it together for my family. I've been trying my hardest to keep things on track so that we have resources for the future. I've been trying my hardest to be a good wife. I've been trying my hardest to be a good student. And man, I'm just telling God, I don't got this. I need some help. And for most of us, this isn't an easy task. And we aren't very good at expressing this. And so I thought it would be a really good thing for us to practice it. You don't even have to mean it, but I want you to practice saying the words with me. I'm going to say it, and then I want you to just repeat it, right? And I know most of you sit there going, I'm not filling out that card when he tells me to. Right? I'm not going to raise my hand when Jordan says to. I am here on my terms. And I get it. So in your mind, I'm going to say it. And here's what I love about neurological science. I say it and you say it in your head, whether you wanted to or not. That's the best part about it. So no matter what, I win. But if you're with me, here's what I want to do. Just take a minute. I don't even care if you mean it or believe it. Just take a minute and say, I don't got this. I need help. Friends, this is where God meets us. This is where God meets us. It's in this place that we begin to stop making excuses. We stop blaming people or circumstances. And it's not discounting that those things don't affect us or impact us, but we stop making those things the crux of our argument before God. We stop blaming. We begin getting honest that we don't got it. We need some help. And all of a sudden what this does is it starts to open the door for the power of God to be demonstrated in our life. Right? And this struggle to come to the realization that we don't got this and we need help, I'm telling you, this has been the struggle of creation from the beginning of time. In fact, all the way back in the Garden of Eden till today, Satan appeals to your desire and to mine to have what we want our way, knowing that if we could just be convinced we got it, then we would never see the need for a Savior. I'm telling you, it worked. For generation after generation, we have pushed God to the edges in our life. For generation after generation, we use our faith like it is a lifeboat in times of trouble. We've reserved church for the thing we do when we just don't have other plans for the weekend. And instead of living a life that is fully devoted, fully surrendered, sacrificed, creation began to worship God the way we wanted. A God who blesses people who are good, nice, and fair, and helps believers be happy and feel good about oneself. And in doing so, we declawed the Lion of Judah. We watered down the purpose and the power of Jesus. And we stopped selling out to the mission of God to bring the message of the gospel to the world. The message is, you don't got this. But Jesus has what you need. Jesus has what your heart was created for, to be in real relationship with God and the kind of relationship that changes everything in your life. You see, the reason we often fear what may come through the doors, the reason why uncertainty has a stranglehold on us, why anxiety is on the rise, why fear and depression continue to cripple us, is because deep down in those quiet moments of our heart, we know we don't got this. We're so worried that something's going to come and rattle the cages of our faith, that God's going to take away some things. And so we try to feel confident. I don't know if you're anything like me, man. It's getting harder and harder to convince ourselves that we actually are confident. And the idea of asking God for help feels like we're letting go of any control that we think we might have. That we would somehow be letting go of whatever better version of life we imagine. See, Jesus knew our tendency. More importantly, he knew that there was an enemy of your soul that wants to destroy you by getting you to arrive at the place that you just don't need help. You got this. You don't need a savior. You can be in control of your own life. Sure, put Jesus on a shelf, pull him down whenever there's some trouble, some problems. But listen, you're in control of it. You do what you want to do. Live for yourself. This is why Jesus, in the time that he had left on his earth, he spent it not trying to hype us up that we can tackle whatever comes our way. He spent it telling us the uncomfortable truth that would save our souls. That the life that you were created for, that I was created for, one of purpose and hope and healing and connection and intimacy with God, is found when we come to the place saying, God, I don't got this. I need some help. That's when the power of God moves in our life, when the Spirit of God resides in us with power. Right? That's when you start to gain the confidence. Hey, come what may. Come what may. I'm not saying that I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes my way. I'm not strong enough to say that I can figure this out on my own, but I got a God whose grace is sufficient for me. I have a God whose power is put on display in my weakness. So man, I don't got this, but my God does. So come what may. My God does. So come what may. Each of my kids, while each one's completely different, they instinctively did the same thing when they were little children. I have a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old and an 8-year-old, but every single one of my kids did the exact same thing when they were little. Whenever they found themselves in a situation where they were hurt, whenever something wasn't going right in their mind, or whenever they needed comforting, each one of my kids, while completely different, did the exact same thing. They came to me and they lifted up their arms because they knew they had a dad who would take care of them, who would pick them up, would hold them, make them feel safe, somehow give them this quiet confidence that we're going to be okay. Friends, that is the access that you and I have with our Heavenly Father. Instead of thinking that you got this, why don't you try just lifting your hands up, going, Dad, I need you. I need you. I don't got this. I need some help. See, as we begin this year, you are going to face some troubles. This year promises to be probably one of the most challenging and divisive years we've had, and that's saying a lot considering the last handful of years we've had. And you're going to be tempted to fight for your way of life, your perspectives, and those things are important. I'm not downplaying them. But just know that whatever comes your way, you don't have to go through it alone. You have a God who says, I got you. You don't got this, but I do. And when you find yourselves in some moments, some seasons of difficulty and challenge, and maybe just feeling overwhelmed, our kids go back to school on Tuesday, and I could tell they're bubbling up with some fear, some anxiousness, some anger already. And I want my kids to go, God, I don't got this. need some help. So that the power of God meets us in that place. See, that's what communion is really about. It becomes one of the tenets in our faith for a reason, because Jesus sat with his disciples in this time, and he kind of was sharing with them what we know as the Last Supper, but they didn't know that. Jesus was saying, hey, listen, I know it's coming. So I just want you to know, every time you do this, every time you break bread, I just want you to be reminded of the sacrifices that I'm going to make. Every time you drink this wine, let it be a reminder of the blood that was shed for you. They didn't even fully understand what that meant. But Jesus was continuing to have this conversation with them as he goes through John 14 and 15 and 16 after the Last Supper. And every time that we share in communion, it is an opportunity for us to be reminded we don't got this. We can't heal ourselves. We can't fix ourselves. We can't forgive ourselves. But Jesus does. And so as we close this morning and we launch into a new year, I want to do so by taking a moment and inviting you to share communion. If you're not a follower of Jesus, that's okay. Just sit back in this moment. You don't have to participate by any means. But just think about the fact that there's a God who loved you so much that he sent his son to die on a cross for you. Because whether you've come to a place to admit it or not, you don't got it. And so God sent Jesus to say, I'll take care of it for you. Put your faith and your trust in me. And so I just want to encourage you in these next couple of minutes. The worship team's going to come. They're going to kind of lead us through a song. We sang it a little bit earlier. And as we do, I just want to invite you in your own way, in your own time, to share communion. And as you do, give thanks for the sacrifice of Jesus, but also remind yourself, I don't got this. God, I need you. And so before we begin, if you didn't receive a communion cup as you walked in, just raise your hand. One of our ushers would love to get you one. And if not, just take a moment. Just pause and remember Jesus and his sacrifice, this continual reminder. You don't have to have it. I got it. And it's because of that confidence we get to look down the barrel of 2024 and say, come what may. Come what may. God, I know I'm not in control. I know I don't got it, but I know you do. And so with that confidence, I hold deep in my heart. God, we thank you for who you are, for what you're doing in us and through us. And in these just next couple of moments, Father, we're thankful for the sacrifice of Jesus, that you loved us enough to say, hey, I know what's coming. And it's not going to always be easy, but you don't have to go through it alone. God, I thank you that you see us in that kind of a way. You remind us, hey, I know the plan. I know the plan. I have a social story for your life. Trust me. Follow me. Take heart, because I've overcome the world. So, Father, as we start this year of uncertainty and possibility, we do so from a posture that says, God, we need you. Come what may, but God, we need you. And so we give this moment in Jesus' name. As the band sings this song, take a few minutes and reflect. And when you're ready at your time, you can partake in the communion elements that you have and be reminded of who God is and his purposes for us.